Italy was like on my top list to travel to for a long time. Just because of the fact that there's so much history in Italy, you know, like starting from like Rome, the Colosseum, and just the massive art, sculptures, paintings, all those beautiful things that have so much history that I'm not normally exposed to. For my travels in Italy, I decided to travel with my GFX 100S Mark II. I know that it's not the best compact, lightweight camera you bring for travel, right? Because we all know how bulky that is and how much weight it has. It's not ideal for travel, to be very honest with you. I could have easily just bought like a smaller compact camera like the Record GR, or maybe snag like a Fujifilm X100SII, right? But that weight, in my opinion, that doesn't matter to me. As you know, I've traveled to Japan with the Fuji 100SII for roughly around 2 weeks. And you know what, it was great that it was super light and compact. I could easily fit that little thing into my jacket pocket and not even worry about the weight itself. But there was something that was missing, right? It's not the camera's fault. Like, the camera is great for what it is, but I just wanted that extra image quality improvements. Going way back, I did bring a GFX 50S Mark II to my first trip to Japan for the first time, and man, I was in love with the image quality that came out of the GFX. But needless to say, I also used it with like a Manola, I think 45mm Record 2.0, I believe. That's like the smallest pancake lens that is able to cover 99% of like the GFX medium format sensor. And yeah, it was fun. I was just floored with like the crazy amount of details, the tonality, just like the natural looking colors in the overall image is something that I can't get over with. So in the end, I ended up bringing my GFX 100S Mark II with a new Mamiya 45mm lens I bought just for that travel. I invested in some Mamiya glass and a Mamiya to GFX adapter. I'm like, hey, I could technically use the 55mm 2.8 Mamiya lens I have that's collecting dust right now, but I wanted something a little wider because I know that I'll be shooting a lot of stuff indoors, namely in like a bunch of cathedrals, as an example, or museums or galleries, right? So I'm like, can I find something that's a vintage Mamiya lens that can cover something a little wider than a 40mm full frame equivalent? And just, you know, by luck, I did find a pristine 45mm 2.8 Mamiya lens like this guy here I bought from eBay, and it was dirt cheap. I think I was able to get it for 400 Canadian off eBay, around there. And man, it was, when this thing came in the mail, there's no blemishes, there's no scratches, nothing. The glass was perfect. It felt like I basically bought a brand new Mamiya lens, and it's crazy how new it looks, and like the weight of it feels great. With this Mamiya 45mm, this has, I believe, 9 glass elements and 6 aperture blades. My first stop in Italy was the Dolomites. Man, it was beautiful. I was lucky that I was able to stay in Dolomites for 4 days and 5 nights. There was so much to cover and very little time, and I was just really worried about the unpredictable weather, since it was my first time there in general. The first stop I went to is the Alpe Sisu, or Susi, sorry, I butchered the name, but it's a phenomenal area. Being there felt like I was in a whole different world, and crazy knowing that there were 2 ways to get there. you can easily just take a gondola all the way up there. Or if you were lucky and you're able to book some sort of lounging up there, you actually get access to the roads that aren't available to the public. The great thing about using a medium format camera like the GFX of travel is the insane amount of dynamic range and having so much room to crop your photos. With that 102 megapixel like sensor, I can crop and reframe my photos the way I like it, and it would still be able to retain a lot of the details and sharpness, which is crazy to me. Benefit of having the sharpest Mamiya wide lens attached to GFX, it was basically spitting out magic for me because I was able to infinite focus, and surprisingly for an old like vintage medium format lens is able to fully utilize the 102 megapixel sensor. And yes, I know that the GFX 100S Mark II isn't ideal for travel because one, this thing weighs quite a bit, right, and it's bulky. And you were to compare it to, I guess, like Nikon ZF or even like Fuji's crop sensor, there's like those in terms of like compactness, lightweight, and just overall portability. Those are much better than the GFX. But the trade-off for the sheer size, bulkiness, weight, and all that is the image quality. How amazing the image quality is, like how much you can push the raw files from this sensor. It makes me, put up with the weight and bulkiness when I'm traveling in Italy. And honestly, it's mind-blowing how much more flexibility, tonality, just the overall package, it's so good. Flexibility of cropping and reframing your photos was one of the biggest advantages of having medium format camera with that much megapixels packed into that sensor. And I'm just gonna show you two prime examples of me taking advantage of that. I ran into these beautiful horses around the area where we're hiking around the place. So from this capture, would you think that I was showing you the full resolution of the photo, or this is cropped in? This is actually a cropped photo from this original image here. See the difference? That's wild for me to be able to crop the image so much without losing much detail or sharpness. So that's a big bonus point for a medium format camera. I have another one as an example. Let's take a look at this one. One of my favorites from the trip, doing a landscape shot of these beautiful mountain trees and lighting, and the shadow is Chef's Kiss. And the amount of detail and sharpness is something I can never achieve with any other camera in my experience. And again, do you think this is like the original resolution photo I was showing? It isn't, because this is a cropped photo from this image. So for this was a great example of me reframing my shot. So the original image is shot in portrait, not landscape orientation, but that doesn't matter if you have that much megapixels to crop and reframe it into a landscape photo. Plus, side to this though, it saved me the trouble from bringing a second lens along with my 45mm Mamiya lens. So that means I didn't have to bring a prime telephoto lens to get a more up-close shot of the mountains. I'm also showing before and after edits. So there's like the raw version and there's like the edited version. So the one thing I love about Fujifilm's raw files, namely like from a medium format sensor, is that editing the files is so much fun. The ability to push the files so hard on the shadows and highlights with no to little noise in the shadows, which is crazy. Like the tonality, the gradients between the colors captured with the medium format sensor, nothing beats it. Their sensor is like 60% bigger than a full frame, right? Just the sheer size of a medium format alone, physics-wise, it will collect more data into the sensor and produce better images, right? The image quality will be so much better. There's no what ifs or buts. It's just a fact, right? But the trade-off is that autofocus is really slow, but that doesn't matter in this context, in this use. If I'm using it for, capturing portraits or just landscapes like I've been showing you right now, it's more than enough. I don't need like fast autofocus for all these things I'm doing. It is probably the best camera you can have for a lot of like landscape work. So the next photos I'm about to shoot is at Lake Briez. Sorry, again, I'm so sorry I can't pronounce the word, but it was roughly around a 2-hour drive from where we were staying. I think immediately I was a little underwhelmed how similar it was to Lake Louise back in Alberta. It just felt like I was home. I was able to get some like good shots of the area with my GFX, and I was really happy because like a lot of the trees there were a mix of green and yellow trees because we're about to hit peak fall season, so you'll start to notice like a lot of the trees are slowly turning color, like that fall foliage. And yeah, I don't know, it was a beautiful lake. So next stop is the Tres de Labrador. Oh my gosh, sorry guys, I can't pronounce the word. But there was one thing that I would have done differently, is that I should have booked my entire day to this area, because I underestimated like the distance to get there, and plus the hike. And man, but thing is though, either way though, like the fact that I was able to be there and catch sunset, it was very beautiful. I was able to capture some beautiful photos in the area, and my lovely partner, she was my subject in these photos here, and it does add so much more to have like, like a model or someone or your loved ones as like the pinnacle of that kind of tells the whole story. So the last stop before going to Rome is Sasita, the one place I can pronounce. Sasita is a very easy place to get to. You could take the gondola up there, or you can choose to hike from the bottom all the way to Sasita. It's just as beautiful as other places I've been to. It's like living in BC, I don't, like, yes, I do get exposed to the lovely mountains in the background, the backdrop living here, but I've never been so up close and personal to these crazy landscapes. And the fact that the Dolomites, it's like a 2-hour drive from Milan or Venice, easy drive, easy access to all these beautiful areas. It's like you're living in heaven. If I had the means, the income, like anything that gives me the chance to live in the Dolomites for a good year, I would do it, no doubt. But there's so much to capture and so much story to tell. The lens already excelled my expectations during my trips to the Dolomites, but it further reinforced the fact that this was the perfect lens for me when I ended up finishing my trip in Rome. So with Rome was more about checking out like cathedrals, museums. I was able to capture a lot of like the beautiful art, architecture design, sculptures in museums, paintings, cathedral, and just like the overall aesthetics of it. And I never get exposed to that certain style or historical like wealth compared to being back home. Absorb as much as I could in a short amount of time when I was in Rome. And I hope that the photos that I'm showing to you right now is able to capture like that feeling of living through my photos and just like understanding or get a feeling of their history. Next travel news is that I'm going to Japan soon, again, my 3rd time. I might as well just live there. We'll be using this and this again for my travels there. And I'm really, really excited for that. So if you guys have any, questions about, my travels to Italy with the GFX, if you're worrying about anything related to that, just, feel free to leave a comment. And if you like the content, just hit the like button. And don't forget, if you're not subscribed to me, please subscribe to me so that way you don't miss any of my future content. Cool. Cheers.